Hello everybody, welcome to the studio. My name is Mel, and together we're going to paint a fun fall gnome. These wooden cutouts are kind of new to my studio, but I'm really liking them. They're easy to paint on, and what I really love about them is that they've got the lines etched in for the shoes, the beard, the nose, the hat, and even the little ball here on the hat. And I think that's pretty fantastic because it makes our painting job a lot easier. That way we can focus on other fun details rather than getting torn up about where we're going to put the beard. It's already done for us. But before we get into it, I want to show you something. The other side of your gnome is naked, and I am going to make a Christmas version of it. So if you're interested in doing the Christmas version, before we begin painting this side, you can just take an ordinary piece of printer paper and lay it over your gnome. You might have to do 2 pieces, but then just take a Sharpie and trace around the lines. I should have opened that first, huh? Okay, here we go. So you can just trace around and get these lines in. Oh, I missed it. There we go. And then when it comes time to do the other side, you can take a pencil, go over your lines, turn the paper over, and trace over it, and the lines will transfer. I know that seems a little silly, but I love a bargain, and if I can get 2 gnomes for the price of 1, why not, right? So that's the cheater technique. Trace it, fold those pieces of paper up, stick them in a drawer until we do our Christmas gnome, and then you don't have to buy the whole kit. You can just get some extra paint and buy the video, or if you're a member, you get the video for free. So before we get into it, let me show you what we're working with today. I have a cup of water and a paper towel here to clean and dry my brushes. I've got the 1/2 inch flat that came in our kit, and I've got a small round pointy brush for some detail work. I am using this palette paper that I've included with your kit. We've got white paint, black paint, brown, green, orange, and red. This is a fall gnome. If you've got other colors that you want to incorporate, I'll show you some tricks on how to complete it, how to get some shading in, and you can adjust that to whatever color that you'd like to dress your gnome with. Now, I've got 2 samples here. The hats are different. You can see on this hat we've got a lot of textures, like it's rumpled fabric, the little patch sewn on, and then on the other one I did some orange polka dots. And you can mix it up however you'd like. I think this guy would be really cute if we did the hat like a piece of candy corn. So you can try whatever you like. If you've got a vision, just follow along and adapt it to whatever you want to do. We are going to start out here though by painting our gnome's outfit with the green. So I'm going to start off with my big brush. I'm going to dip it in the water, and just to get those bristles wet, and then drag those bristles across the edge of the cup to get out any excess. And we're going to load our brush from the edge of our puddle of paint. So grab a little, pull it down, and we're going to put the first coat of green on our gnome here. So you want to take your time as you go around these lines so that we can keep our form nice and clean. And I just take my time to outline these edges, and then I can use bigger strokes to paint things in. Now before we get too far into it, you may find it easier to paint your gnome if he's flat on the table, and that's totally okay. My studio is set up so that I shoot things on easels, and I'm just going to go with it. So lay it flat if you'd like, take your time, go around and outline. If you want to use the smaller brush to do the outlining, you can. And this first coat's going to be a little translucent. You'll see brush strokes in it, but don't worry about it. Don't add more paint. We're going to put another layer on when we add our shadow and our highlight. So I will see you guys when we get all this green in. I'm going to zoom in here for you so that we can get a good up-close view. What we want to do before this green layer dries entirely is come in and create some shadow and some highlight that will create some wrinkles and folds in our fabric. So to do that, I'm still going to continue with my big brush. I'm going to take a scoop about the size of a pea, maybe 2 peas over here of the green, and then I'm just going to take a tiny edge of my brush and pick up a little bit of black. I can always come back and add more, but I can't take it out. So I want to create a darker version of this green. There we go. And once I get that, I'm just sort of moving that paint around. My brush is filled with a lot of paint, so I push down and give it a twist, and that'll sort of wring out the extra paint. And I'm going to drop that big brush off in the water and grab the small guy. Now I'm going to load up a little bit on the tip of my bristles. And what I want to do first is create some shadow. So I'm going to cut a line down between the feet here from the beard down and create the legs. And from there, I can grab that line and pull curves up and in. Some are shorter, some are longer, but that leaves the darkest tone right here in the middle, where it would be deeper and in shadow. We can go the other way. And just creates a little bit more shape for our buddy here. Now this is really wet, so the paint might slide around a little bit. So I wiped off my brush, picked up some of that excess paint. Now I'm coming to the other side, going around that curve, creating a little bit of shadow, and then just pulling in, sweeping back and forth, so that it's just little bits darker here along the edges of the legs. And then just flick in. And that will help our gnome have a little bit of depth to him. Bring a little more shadow where the foot's going to go over the shoe, even a little under the beard. It might be casting a little bit of shadow. And I leave these strokes kind of loose and chunky, maybe here in between the arm. I like these chunky strokes because then it looks like I was just intentionally loose with them, instead of having to worry about blending everything perfectly. That's kind of stressful. So I like this sort of fun, whimsical look. Just a little bit of shadow. We can always come back and add more. Just little loose bits here, just creating little wrinkles in the clothes. And take your time with that. You don't want to overblend it, because otherwise you'll just end up with everything being a little darker shade of green instead of having some light and some dark showing through. But you want to play with it until you're happy with it. So you can pause me and take your time. And when you're ready, I'm going to show you how to add a little bit of highlight. Now that our shadow is in, I'm just going to take a little bit of green. I'm not really cleaning my brush, just grabbing a little bit of green, moving it over, and taking a little tiny speck of white. I just want to lighten it up a little bit. And I'm going to use this little bit across the center here to just add a little touch of highlight. And that makes his legs look a little round, following sort of at a curve there. And it just breaks up the fabric, makes it look like there's a little wrinkle there, a little highlight. I feel like Moira on Schitt's Creek. Fold the cheese, David, fold the cheese. You know, fold it. Basically, when we have a wrinkle, we're going to have a dark spot in the wrinkle. And then where it poops up and we have the curve, we're going to have the highlight. So that's what I mean, but my words were failing me and I got a little dramatic about it. Sorry that happens. Sometimes you gotta go in and add a little more shadow. So I feel like it's just not dark enough between his legs. Maybe a little bit more at the edges. Take your time with this. Don't feel like you have to rush. It's the great thing about painting at home. So you can take your time. Maybe some little highlight on his arms. Don't need to mess with it a whole lot. Okay. And at that point I'm going to quit, because once I add the beard and all these other things for my eye to look at, I won't be as drawn to or distracted by little bits that I see here. So get yourself finished up, and when you come back, where I'm going to show you how to do some stuff with our hat. Let's paint our gnome's hat. Now I have two examples here. On the far side, we've got a brown hat with some orange circles and a darker brown brim. So I basically used our regular brown to cover the hat. Then I let it dry. I put in the circles. This took 2 coats of orange. And then I added some black to some brown to make the darker fur band. Now when I did it the second time, I left the hat without that big dark band. And I just sort of followed dark and light lines along a base coat of brown to create the wrinkles with the same idea that we did here in the fabric of the pants. And I'm really fond of this one. And I like the idea of putting little patches on it. So I think I might add even more to this one. So we're going to start off with a base coat of brown over the entire hat. So first, let's clean our big brush and get that ready to go. You want to sweep along the bottom of your cup gently, just back and forth, sweeping. See how that water's turning green? It's okay. I'm going to drag my brush across the edge of my cup, and that will drip out the extra water. Give it a press into my paper towel. I'm good to go. Just going to load up some brown. Remember, grab from the edge of your puddle and pull away. And then we're going to start painting this in. We've got a line here. It's okay. We can cover it. We'll still be able to see it. The only line we really need to be cautious with is this one. So take your time as you go along this edge. Just put a little line there, like a little buffer. We're cutting it in like when you paint the corners or the floor or the ceiling when you're doing a wall. And we can even go around our little pom-pom there on the edge. And once that's done, all bets are off. You're home free. Paint away, my friends. I'll see you when you're ready. Get this coat on. Now at this point, when our first coat of brown is on, you've got some decisions to make. If you're going to go with decorations like polka dots or stripes, you want to let this dry completely, so you can hit it with a heat gun or a blow dryer, but make sure this first coat is completely dry before you attempt doing anything else. I'm going to show you how to make those circles. I'm going to give you a little trick. First, you want to use your big brush. And I've got brown in mine, so I'm going to go with brown. We're going to load some paint up. And what you want to do is stand the brush up against the paper, or in this case the wood, and you're going to just slightly push until those bristles start to bend. Now holding it really close to the bristles where the metal and the plastic meet, and keeping the brush centered, you're going to spin it. And those bristles are going to spread out further the more you push. And that will help you get a circle. So if you want to make a smaller one, you don't push as hard, and you just spin. Sometimes I have to stop and go back the other way. But it's like using a compass in geometry and just spinning it around, keeping it in place. It's kind of hard to do one-handed holding this other piece of paper. So I recommend laying your gnome flat and working on those circles. You can use your smaller brush if it helps. Draw them and fill them in, whatever you think works for you. But if you're going to add anything in layers that you don't want to blend, you want to let it dry entirely, and then you can add stripes, you can add circles, you can do whatever you want. If you want some texture in the fabric, like this one, we want to move while our brown layer is still wet. So let me show you that. First, I'm just going to make sure my brown paint, I can see it's starting to dry while I was showing you that other stuff. So I'm just using a little water and a little brown paint to make sure I've got a nice wet surface to greet my shadow and highlight colors. And once that's wet, I'm going to take a little piece of brown about the size of a lima bean, move that over, and grab a tiny touch of black and stir that in. I want to get a really deep espresso color. This is going to create the shadow in my fabric. So remember, we can use our hand as an example. Wherever there's a fabric fold in the deeper parts, we're going to have shadow, and wherever there's a curve to it, we're going to have light. So what I like to do is use the skinny edge of that brush. So that means I've got the skinny side parallel and flat, or horizontal I mean, and I'm just going to start lightly wisping irregularly through here, sort of at an angle up toward the center and then out toward the edges. And these lines are not complete. We have a little space here where we can see that line that was etched in. I'm going to go over that, and then just like we did with the pants, I can pull in a little at a curve, and that creates some more shadow. And I like this just sort of woven, rumpled texture on this guy's hat, because then we can do fun things like sew little quilt patches on and things like that. So I'm even going to come through and add a few on the curve here on that tail. But that's really all I need. Less is more. So take your time, and when you're ready and you turn me back on, I'll show you how to do the highlights. Now that our shadow to our wrinkly fabric here is in, I feel like I need even more depth. So I haven't cleaned my brush. I'm going to grab a little bit more black and darken up the dark brown I was already using. Now this really deep dark one, I am going to use very carefully and just add in a few little rumply, curvy lines. Just a few, not too much. But you can see what that did there. It added some depth. Let me zoom you in. There we go. So we've got those deep parts. Now I need to create a little highlight. So I'm just going to rinse out my brush. That big brush, dry it off, grab a little bit of brown, and add just a tiny touch of white to it. Lighten that up. Just a little bit. Now remember, where we have those deep parts up near them, we're going to have a little highlight. So I come below it and add just a little bit of that lighter, brighter shade that we're using. And if you feel like it's a little harsh, you can just take the tip of your finger and just glide it over. And ever so slightly, as you glide that over, little wiggly lines here, it adds some texture and some dimension. Your finger is the perfect blending tool at this stage for that amount of paint. Maybe we need a little highlight here up toward the top of his hat. Just a little blend. And I believe that less is more for this, and I'm going to leave it at that. Once you get where you want, don't overblend it. Remember, let it dry. You come back in and add more. When you're ready, come back and see me, and we're going to put in our shoes. Once your hat is dry, we can come in and work on our shoes. And to do those, I'm going to clean my big brush, sweep the bottom of that cup, drag the bristles across that edge to get the excess water out, and then sweep it off on your paper towel. I'm going to grab some black paint, just some regular old black from our palette, and being careful coming around that top curve where the line meets the green, just to keep that nice and clean, and then using a sweeping stroke, just going to fill that in. We're going to do one, then the other, and then I'll show you how to come in with just a little white on your brush and swoop over that, create a little highlight, get a little curve. Once your black is all painted in before it dries, you can still use your big brush. You just want to sweep off any excess paint on your paper towel. Just get the tiniest bit of white on the tip of your bristles, and you might even tap off any excess. And we're just going to do one quick swoop like you see here. So you start on one side, and in one swoop, maybe two, you come right over, and that's it. One swoop, another one just for good measure. Okay, that one faded out a little bit. There we go. But you don't want to go overboard or too crazy with that. Just little bits of highlight to just make that shoe or that little foot look round. Take your time with it. Remember, if you keep fussing with it, it's all going to turn into one shade of gray, and you want many shades of gray in your shoes. Just like we will in our beard, which is coming up next. In order to do our beard, we are going to clean out our brush. So I'm going to give mine a good sweeping and bouncing here on the bottom of my cup, tapping off that extra dirty water, dragging it to be safe, and then sweeping it off on my paper towel. And my paint water looks like this, but my white will be pretty good as long as I follow those steps. So the first thing I want you to do is pick up some white paint and start right here at the center of the nose. What we're going to do is swoop out to the left to catch this point and out to the right to catch the other. So one curved line and then another. We are going to do the beard first. So we want to go from this line down, and once we get that done, we'll come back in. I realize that way it's probably hard to see, but let me describe it again. Center the nose, swoop out to the left to catch that furthest point on the bottom. Same thing on the right. So we're going to start off with our white paint. And we're going to work our way from this line down. And there's a stroke I'm using intentionally. It's a couple inches long and it overlaps, and I just work my way from that line down. Right now I'm using the wide side of the brush, so when I come down I get a thick line. And I don't want them to be that perfect and straight. You want them loose and overlapping. Some are a little brighter, some are a little lighter, but we want to just lay down a base layer of white, because once we're done with this, we'll take our small brush and our gray and create that texture and the depth in the beard. So remember, we're swooping down with a wisp. And even when you get to the edges, as long as your clothes are dry, you can just wisp your way out. You don't need to follow that neat, perfect line. We want little wispy bits on that edge so that it goes with the whole idea of the gnome having that, big, thick, wispy beard. So wisp away, my friends, and when you are ready, come back and we'll start adding the gray. Once all of our white is on our beard, we can take our small brush, dry it off, make sure it's clean, and we're going to make some gray. So grab some white, move that over. We don't need a lot. That's about the size of 2 peas. Then I'm going to take a little dab of black and swirl that in. And I leave it swirly like fudge ripple ice cream, because as I work my way through the beard, that's going to give me lots of different shades of gray, which is, you know, what we want here. So we want to use a stroke that comes down and wisps. And we want our hair to overlap the hair of our beard. So we're going to start at the bottom and let those little wisps come out all fringy. And then we'll create another row above, and that will be above it and overlap fringy. Let me show you what I'm doing. You can watch for a second and then you can join in. But I start down at the bottom and I just use these short wispy strokes following the pattern that I want the hair to lie, and bring this down to the edge. They're not straight, they kind of curve and follow the outline of the beard, and I work my way across and up. Then I can pick up a little more paint. I'm not going to go over that anymore, because if I do, I'll lose those streaks and everything will become one new dull shade of gray. So I'm going to overlap a little bit and do that same thing, working my way across here. And I'm just wisping down, leaving gaps, coming back the other direction. Working my way up, all the way across. Some of these lines are longer. I pull them all the way down. Now when I get up to where the mustache is going to be, it's okay to overlap a little bit there. Give a little flick at the end of your stroke, let it pull up. If you want them to be super gray, you can add even more. But I'm pretty pleased with this. And what I will do is, once I get all the gray in, before I move on to the mustache, I will come in with a little bit of white and try to break up, you know, any streaks that I'm not really crazy about. But you know, I'm pretty happy with this. And I feel like the more I mess with it, the more likely I am to mess it up. So we're going to call this good. Keep working your way through. Remember, don't overblend it. Quick hits and then move along. I'm going to fiddle with mine just a little bit, and when you're ready, let's move on to the mustache. Now that our beard is in, we're going to come in and create our mustache, and we're going to use a very similar process to the way that we did our beard. So I'm going to start off with our big brush, clean and dry, and some white paint. Now this time, instead of going down, I'm going to start at the nose and go out. So I like to drop the curve of this line, and we'll overlap. And then I follow that curve, letting those strokes overlap as I work my way up. You can come in and fill in that section so you don't have to worry about the nose. There we go. And just pull out. Remember, our brush strokes can make a difference in the way that the direction our paint or our image is going. Now I don't like this completely smooth, so I create a little fringe. I just come along and pull down and let it wisp out a little bit, because that's the way we're going to create the gray in our mustache anyway. So you want to do that to both sides, starting at the center and working your way out to the left, and then the center, curving and working your way out to the right. Remember, you can outline the nose first. Keep that shape pretty clean, and then fill this in. Here we go. Now that our mustache is in, at least the white of it, we can switch back to our smaller brush and our gray. If you need to make more, remember to leave a little swirl in it. And I'm going to take just a little bit, starting at the center of the nose, coming along that fringe on the bottom, and just creating that flick motion. If it gets a little too dark, you can wipe off your brush and start over with a little bit more white. But really, I just keep flicking here. There we go. Start at the edge and work our way up. Now this side got a little gray, that's okay. I'm going to move on to the other side, let it dry a little bit, and then I can come back and hit it up with a little fresh white. But you can really drop the shape of this mustache if you want to with that gray. I like to just pull that away once I make that line so that it doesn't have a chance to dry. And then I get busy with my flicking strokes. Just like that. This mustache is a little lopsided, but he's a little lopsided, so come in and add some more. Add a touch of white, whatever you feel like you need. Just to let you know where we go next from here, we're going to go up and add details to our hat. So you might want to think about whether or not you want to add patches, or whether you're going to do polka dots, whatever you want to do. I'll show you how to do both. I'll do a round patch and a square one. And then you can figure out whether or not you want to do polka dots or whether or not you want to do patches. All right, I'll see you in a few minutes when you're all ready. Isn't he getting cute? Look at all that gray in the beard and the little mustache. Let's do some fun detail on the hat. If you're going to make a circle, let's clean off your big brush, and we're going to lighten up a little bit of our orange with some white just to help it stand up against that dark color underneath. So there's some orange, I moved it over. I'm going to grab a little bit of white, not a lot, about half as much, and stir that in. I really don't want to change the color as much as I want to just put a little oomph behind it so it's not as translucent. See, the color difference isn't that severe. So we're going to do the circles, and I'll show you again how we do those. You want to push your brush so that the bristles, whoops, my brush is a little wet there. I don't want that water dripping. Okay. Crisis averted. You want to push your bristles right up against it and let them bend slightly. And then turn your brush while you keep it in one spot. So the handle just twists in your hand. Boom. The smash and twirl. You're going to need to do it twice to get a good layer. But you can also make them bigger if you'd like. So let me show you how to make this one bigger. I'll start again in the center. And this time I'll push harder and let those bristles spread out even further. And as long as I keep that brush centered and just twirling, my circle comes out pretty good. So I'm going to let that dry, and then I will paint over it, do some stitches over it with my patch like the other one. I'm going to put another patch in over here. This one I'm going to make a square. And then maybe up here we'll do a triangle just for fun. Or it could be the corner of a square depending on how it hit the hat. You can take a little white, streak that through just to change it up. I'm sort of creating a weave or a pattern here. I bring my lines down vertically and then I go across horizontally. And it creates a little woven pattern there. I'm just going to outline it there to make it a little more interesting. I'm going to leave that patch orange, but I'm going to try to make each patch just a little bit different. In fact, this one, I think I might paint it over with green. Let's see how that looks. I've got some of this darker green left. Add just a touch of white to it. Oh yeah, there we go. Look at that. Now this patch is going to be green. Just like that, I changed it. You can leave it orange if you want. Write your senator or congressman, whatever you need to do. But I get to make mine however I like it. So my patch is there, and then on this one, I'm just going to make little dashed lines through it so that it looks like a different pattern in the fabric. And I'm just realizing I think the top of that is cut off. Let me zoom you out a little. There we go. So I've got the green triangle, and I'm just going to do again like a little woven pattern. So horizontal lines, and then go across the other way. And leave some little bright spots like that. This one, I'm going to sew up with some white stitching. So I've just got the white on the end of my brush, and I'm just tapping to create those sewn stitches. That's kind of fun. You can do whatever you like though. Whatever makes you happy. I'm going to paint in my little pom-pom with some orange. You could do stripes, you can do patterns. You can make him chic and leave him all monochromatic. It's entirely up to you. Ooh, my line went over there. I'll just wipe that off with my finger. No harm, no foul. Nobody knows. I need to put some stitches on this guy. Actually, I think I'm going to add a little red. So this is where we get to just use all our creative fun. I take a little red and outline this patch. A little bit of red just to brighten it up. Maybe even, there we go. Create another little sort of hatch mark pattern. Just take your time and play with it. If it totally stinks and you don't like it, dry it and paint over it. I'm going to put some stitches on this one. I think for this one again, I'm going to use a little bit of white. And then just tap my way around. This little patchwork, fall quilty sort of thing that we've got going on. And look, the little red and green hint on its way to Christmas. Shh, don't tell anybody. We've got some stitches there. And my orange is still wet. So, try not to mess with that too much. Or hit it with the blow dryer. Okay, I dried this and put another layer on it. And for this one, I think I'm going to do some black stitching. So just taking the very edge of that big flat brush, dipping it in the black, and then stamping it around. So those are our stitches. It's a little Halloween-y. And let's see, what have we got left? We got to give this guy a nose. Oh, let me show you how to turn this little ball into a pumpkin. How about that? That'll be fun. Let's take a little orange, put a little wet layer of orange down. And you've got to figure out where you want your stem to come out. So for this purpose, I'm going to make the stem right there. We can change the color of it. I'm just putting it in so I know where it goes and which direction to take my curves. Without cleaning my brush, I'm going to grab a little bit of brown and starting at the top, I'm going to make a couple of curved lines. 2 going to the left, and 2 going to the right. And that makes it look a little bit like pumpkin segments. Now you can really get in here and start adding great detail if you want. Just keep dragging those lines down and blending them. Remember, our shadow is in the deepest part. If you're not careful, it might look like a basketball. And then I just grab a little more orange and blend that back out. If you want to add a little highlight, remember where those curves are. You can add little bits of white. And just put little segments in it. Then I'm just going to take a little green, paint in my pumpkin stem. You can even add a leaf if you want. To make them super fun and fall festive. Here we'll add one on each side. So the sky is the limit with your gnome, you guys. You can do whatever you like to him. It's all super fun. Look, we'll even put a little vine. Little curly vine coming off his pumpkin. So isn't that cute? I'm digging it. I'm glad I took that risk. But remember, that's what we can do with this kind of painting. We can take risk in small portions. So if you're like me and you don't want to be super daring, but you're not afraid to try something a little new, if I know that I can cover this up, I'm much more likely to try new things. And so that's a good way to look at it. You know, how can I undo this if it really goes sideways? Okay, last step that we're going to do today, guys, is going to be painting in our nose. So when you're ready, come on back and I'll show you how to put in the nose. We're almost there. Hang in there. Let's finish off our gnome by giving him a nose. So let's clean our big brush. And we're going to make some pink. And we want a pink that's somewhere between bubblegum and cotton candy. So grab a scoop of white, move that over, and then add a dab of pink to it. Less is more. You can add more. You can't take it away. I put in too much. So I'm going to move some over, grab a little bit more white. There we go. That's a little bit better. And what I want to do is, starting in the center of the nose, fill this in. Working my way out. Now when you get to the outer edges, take your time. Take your time so that you get that edge nice and clean. We're going to come around that outer edge with some red, and that's going to put the shadow on the outside of those curves and give our nose that round shape. So one shade of bubblegum to cotton candy pink right here in the nose, and when you're done, switch brushes. We're going to add a little red to our pink and come in with some shadow. Okay, time for some shadow. I'm going to take a little bit more red and add it to my pink. So it's a little bit darker, more of a rose color. Not a scarlet, but you know. Here we go. I'm going to bring that small brush around, and I'm just staying on the outer edge as much as I can. And I just want to take one pass around. Then I'm going to sweep off my brush, and I'm just going to keep sweeping around so that that darker tone stays on the outside. If you don't think it's enough, you can come back and add a little more, but you want those darkest bits to be at the edge so that we get that depth and that curve. We can even add a little more shape and curve by just popping a little curve of white on one side or on the top. So I'm going from about noon to just past 9 there, if this were a clock. Just that little curve pops that nose right out. I mean, you guys, how fun was this one? And now we have 3 versions, all with the same palette, where we really change up the hat and make them look a little bit different. So we've got triplets. I hope that you had a lot of fun painting our fall gnome. If you are not a member of my Facebook group, please go join. It's Paint with Mel and Friends. I'll put it up on the screen for you. You can always subscribe to my YouTube channel, Paint with Mel, also on the screen, and follow me on social media. That way you get the jump when new stuff is coming out or when I've got new videos going. So I had a great time painting with you. Happy fall, my friends. Check out paintwithmel.com. There's a bunch of fall paintings out there. We've got more gnomes even for Halloween. And I will see you when I see you again. Happy painting. Send me pictures of your work and I'll talk to you soon. Bye guys, take care.